to our April 11th work session. We always start out our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you please rise. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission statement for Richmond Community Schools says that Richmond Schools, in partnership with the community, will help all children believe in themselves, respect others, and experience the joy of learning. Through effective teaching, children will first learn the basic skills, including thinking skills, using words, numbers, and ideas. In addition, children will be given the opportunity to learn more of what they want and need to know. Adults will model behavior that will teach children to resolve conflicts successfully, take risks with new ideas, and understand that they can err without being judged. The Board of School Trustees recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on corporation matters. So we want to ensure that you feel welcome and that your concerns are answered in a timely, efficient manner. The following protocol has been established. The board has set aside two 30-minute periods for public comment during each board meeting. The maximum time for individual speakers is 5 minutes per person. The board expects personal decorum and factual information from the speaker. The president reserves the right to interrupt the speaker when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or if it interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. If the public comment reflects inaccurate or incomplete information, the superintendent may clarify the facts after the public comments section. Public comments requiring no research, investigation, or review may receive response from the board and/or administration as appropriate. And now we're going to move on to snapshots of success. Oh, you know what? Was there anyone signed up? I do that all the time.
By the time you read all that stuff.
Freudian slip there.
It's fun.
Okay, so now we'll move on.
Snapshots of success.
Snapshots of success. We have gathered tonight representatives from the Richmond High School Student Council, and we also have the principal, Mrs. Wolpe, here, and I'll ask her to come to the podium and make the introductions.
Good evening. I'm going to let the students do all the talking tonight. So I am very proud to introduce to you tonight members of our student council. I'll have them give you their names and their mission tonight.
All right, I am Drew Horn. I am student vice president and I'm a senior.
I'm Shelly Huth and I am senior class secretary and I'm a senior.
I'm Ashley Duff. I'm a senior and I am chairman of Platinum Prom.
We just wanted to come and get some highlights of the year. We've been very busy, had lots of things going on. So I'm just going to start at the beginning of the year, just some big things that we've sort of tried to do. Over the summer, we sent 2 students to SLI, which is like a leadership camp in Manchester at Manchester College. That was very good. It helped them. Right before school began, we painted the parking lot, parking spaces. It was fun and messy, lots of messiness. In October, we had a cancer awareness themed homecoming. It was a really, really good spirit week. People really, since it had an edge to it, a real, something to be really spirited about, something that people could really relate to. People got really into it, except it was really good with the exception of our parade getting rained out. It's a little sad. In November, we went to the Indiana Association of Student Councils State Convention in Indianapolis. It was very fun. We do it every year, and it's really great. We build our leadership skills. It brings some of the younger kids out of their shells and really gets them livened up. We're an honor council within that association, and we have been for 16 years, which is pretty awesome. Also, we had the largest council in all of Indiana to attend it. It's pretty
Yeah, that's
fun fact, I guess. In December, we had Riley Week, which is very successful every year. We love doing Riley Week. It brings a lot of kids to help as well. All week long, we sold candy and collected donations from the students. We had one student give a $100 bill. He's very awesome. His name's Scott Miller, if anybody knows him. Very awesome. Very awesome. And he works, so it's his money. Very awesome. And then at the end of the week, we compete with Connorsville in our annual chain game. We just tape paper chains together to represent how much money we've made. And we went to the Connorsville basketball game against Richmond at Connorsville. And we strung out our chains, whatever. We won. Pretty awesome. We raised $2,700, and Connorsville raised $400. Great. Just some other events that just some other things we've had going on. We did a September 11th commemorative ceremony, Veterans Day assembly. We had our snowball dance. And then a new project we started this year with Crystal Presti and one of our senior class president, Kelsey Delacroix, is the Gleaners Food Pantry. It's this program that we started, and it's for any student in need of food or supplies, basic essentials that everyone should have. They're provided for them. They just have to come and sign up and get registered, and then whatever they need, it really helps them out. And a lot of kids are doing it, or not a whole lot because it's starting right now, but we hope by next year kids will really step up for it, not feel embarrassed, because if people are in need, they should get the help that's provided for them. Also, our big fundraising, each month, twice a month, we have Donut Day. Our students really like that. We just sell square donuts. And then we worked Boys and Girls Club concession stand for the youth basketball leagues. Those are pretty fun. I like this. Next up, we have a Platinum Prom. It's Ashley.
Hi. So this Saturday at 6 o'clock, we are hosting our 5th annual Platinum Prom for citizens 60 and over. Decorations and theme this year is In the Mood. It's going to be decorated as a Glenn Miller nightclub.
Oh, fun.
As of today, we have over 180 reservations, which have come from places such as Anderson, Cincinnati, Middletown, Dayton, and Indianapolis.
Nice.
Live music will be performed by the Rush County Big Band, which is a group of 14 to 20 current and former educators from Central Indiana. We have received some local area business donations from Olive Garden, MCL, and Carver's. Also, Cracker Barrel, and there's a few other businesses, but I'm not quite sure. We will be having bingo, and a King and Queen contest will be held, along with refreshments for all of the guests. And each guest will receive a complimentary corsage and coffee mug. Those attending are asked to dress in formal or semi-formal attire, Sunday best, however they feel most comfortable. And pictures will be taken by Grace Wyatt and will be given out to the guests at the end of the night. I think that's about it.
Thank you.
On May 1st, we'll be having Celebrate RHS, and you'll hear more about it later when it comes closer to May 1st. But as well student council involvement, there'll be student council kids posted around the school in like the hot spots, and they'll be wearing question mark shirts, so people can go up to them and ask them questions. And anyone from the community is welcome, not only like RHS, like students who have parents. No, like it doesn't just have to be anyone affiliated. It can be anyone, and they can find out facts that they want to know about the high school, or any myths that they have. They can be busted or be found true. And because some people think that, like, oh, Richmond High School is such a bad place, but actually I think they'll find out that it's actually a really cool place to be.
Lastly, on May 19th is our Relay for Life. Well, it's not our Relay for Life, but it's Relay for Life for Wayne County. And we always do a Richmond High School team. It's also the same night as prom, which is interesting. We're going to...
You're going to be up all night anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be a long night. the Relay for Life will start at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, May 19th, and we'll go 24 hours till the next 9 a.m. And then our prom will be that night. What we were kind of planning on doing, this sounds kind of fun, we didn't find this out until, or we didn't realize it, I guess. We had both of these dates written down, but we didn't realize it until maybe a month or so back. We've decided now that after prom, especially as seniors, we're going to come in our formal attire and do some laps around in our the tuxes and the big dresses, and it'll just be a really fun time, and it'll be a great alternative to any other activity going on after prom. So it'll be a fun activity. We're going to promote it for any Richmond High School senior or junior or whoever's there, so please come to that. It would be a nice, the prom committee is still working out plans, whatever, but it's promoted as an alternative, something better to do with your time. Go raise money for cancer. It's much better. And you're invited to that as well. If you would like to join our team, if you just want to donate, or if you just want to
walk during prom.
Yeah, walk during prom. I mean,
We'll fill in while you're dancing.
Thank you very much. Hopefully I can be there the most of the day, because I don't have to have my hair done or anything like that. But, yeah, my nails, yeah. Hopefully the most of the day, but in the nighttime, our underclassmen are definitely going to help us out. So you're all invited to that, and if you didn't understand, you're definitely invited to our Platinum Prom. We'd love to see all of you there. And of course, Celebrate RHS is open to you as well.
But I'm not 60.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
you can
right.
come.
Don't rub it in. Support.
Yeah, we don't card you.
Sorry.
There's no, we don't need to have an ID to make sure
Well,
that you're.
thank you for all you have planned and all that you do. Student council's grown this year, hasn't it?
It has. Our meetings are getting bigger. We have more involvement. More people are taking on chairpersons, and not just officers. More people are really stepping up.
So how are you getting more people involved? What would you say to the 8th graders who might be listening or watching?
If they would want to join, it's open to anyone. You don't have to become a leader. You don't have to become an officer. We just like workers. A lot of our projects are just really fun. Like, we went to ballroom dancing last night, and it's just fun and unexpected. And I think a lot of people are surprised when they join student council how much fun it is. You think it's just a lot of work, or you think it's a boring meeting, but our meetings are very fun. We have a lot of interaction and communication
doing a
with
lot.
students.
Yes.
It's fun.
Who are the faculty advisors? Because it always takes lots of adult help
Of
as well.
course. We have the wonderful Chris Lepresti back here. We also have Jane Parks and Corey Irwin. They're all great, all helpful.
Yes, we say thank you. I have only one question for one of our fellow school board members. Are you and Troy dancing again? You know, Suzanne and Troy were in the Birth to Five,
I'll have to
Dancing
work
with
on
the
that.
Stars. So they ought to go to the Platinum Prom, and they could be
Prize
their
our
guest. You could,
performance.
their
And
guest
Bridget,
performers,
where's
right?
Bridget?
Oh, and Bridget too, right?
I don't know. It might be hard to get Troy back out there.
Does anyone else have questions? Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great job.
Have you ever been to the Platinum Prom? Have you ever been to any
I
of
haven't, but I would like to.
It's a great night.
Oh,
Yeah.
I plan to be there.
Have you been?
Yes.
Next is our public hearing for the Capital Projects Fund, and I declare the public hearing open. The purpose of this hearing is to offer the public an opportunity for comments and questions regarding the 2012 to 2014 Capital Projects Amended Plan. Mr. Coddington, Director of Business Affairs, will present this information. We invite questions at the conclusion of each portion of his presentation.
Yes, the board approved an additional appropriation of $1,541,640 in March. We now need to amend our capital projects fund in the amount of $1,541,640. This amended plan will be submitted to the state upon approval. This has no tax impact, as we are appropriating unused cash reserves in our capital project fund.
Do we need to take a motion on that?
I don't think you have to do anything except have this hearing. You might want to close.
Are there
and
any
open.
questions
From us or from the public? It's a public hearing.
from public or board members? Okay, then I need a motion to close the public hearing.
I so move.
Second.
Jeff Slifer makes the motion and Aaron Stevens seconds the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now back to our regular meeting.
Now, this is where the formal action takes place.
Okay.
Mr. Coddington.
Yes, tonight we ask the Board of Trustees to adopt now the amended 2012-2014 capital projects planned as presented, and that the administration be given permission to publish the notice of adoption.
Do I hear a motion?
So
Pat
moved.
Heine makes the motion, and Linda Morrison seconds the motion. Are there any comments and questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
Motion
you.
is carried.
Our next action item comes in the way of a curriculum initiative, and we turn to Mr. Millis to talk to the board about that.
I'd like to bring forward to the board this evening the recommendation. We're moving forward with Indiana Science Initiative for K-5 curriculum, which if you'll recall, we had delayed adoption last year because we were taking on both the reading and math adoption for this year. We've had two of our schools involved at Crestdale and Highland Heights, and both of those have been very successful, and this year adopted, and we were offered an opportunity for a school corporation to participate in a large grant, and I really don't know the total amount because it's a partnership grant, but I'm going to estimate the participation for Richmond schools to be approximately $150,000 to $200,000 for a science coach and training that would go along with utilizing the initiative. So I think our committee and our principals are excited. The response has been really positive to the hands-on science. Also involves problem solving and notebooking. Students predict what they think will happen with certain experiments, then they'll take notes and write their what they observe and then their conclusions. So it really runs through the scientific process. You received a schedule of those kits, and most of those are from two different companies, FOSS and CPUP, which we have CPUP at the middle school level. So I would just want to gain the board's approval for the program and the adoption of the grant, which I think will greatly enhance our program. And also, we did appoint a person for the coach if we adopt this, and that was Lori Fields, who's been involved at Highland Heights.
Do I hear a recommendation to approve participation in the Mathematics and Science Partnership Grant?
So
Aaron
moved.
Stevens makes the motion. Pat Heine seconds the motion. Are there comments and questions? Linda?
How were the teachers involved in the process?
We had a committee that has actually met for about a year and a half, and I'd say there are about half the teachers on that, and there have been leaders in science in our school corporation, but they were from Highland Heights and Crestdale, and I think we just looked at several angles and just felt that the positives of this program were just really great, and I think they recognize the merits. Our challenge will be to fit it into our curricular day and designate the time, and I think that was their concern, so we're going to work at that.
So how much time do you expect it to take? Is it a daily?
We're trying to build in, yes, more or less, because the kids come in and they're here for a period of time, and then the teachers send them back. So we're going to build in a time within the day, approximately 45 minutes, and when we're not doing the science kits, then that will be time for social studies. And
Is that K through?
it'll be K through, well, the fifth grade will be a little different structure because it'll be an intermediate schedule. And actually, we'll have more time to do that. But the K to 4 will have that time built into the day.
Jeff?
That was kind of my question with the way our grade level configurations have changed. I didn't know whether it would be more beneficial for us to do a K through 4 program and then look at adding 5 or 6 or something later. I don't know if the grant allows that kind of flexibility, but I just was wondering.
We had adopted at Highland Heights and Crestdale through 6th grade, but the 6th grade, we had packaged all of the fees and rental as an elementary program. For some reason, that 6th grade is really expensive, and it's more than double in fees. So when we put it at the intermediate, that'll have to be a separate fee now. And so when we talked in the committee, we're probably going to utilize the CPUP adoption, which uses some of the same kits, but it'll be less expensive. And we just felt like that is just going to stand out as a large fee if the science initiative would be at the 6th grade. They're very similar through the 5th grade. So that's kind of the reasoning. We've already adopted it 7th and 8th.
Oh, okay.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
We did
So I
that
guess
last
I wasn't aware of
year.
that.
Yeah.
Linda?
I wanted to ask, you said we have a grant for 150,000, is that?
I don't know what the exact amount is because Purdue sent that into the federal government, so it's a federal grant. And they took information from Richmond, I filled that out, and then we sent it. And really, the amount of training they're willing to do, any amount of training that we wish to do, whether that's during the summer, there'll be summer academies, both this summer and next summer, and training during the school year, and then, of course, Lori's salary will be paid this year, so I'm just guessing it's in the 150,000 to 200,000 range.
Okay, so that's what I want to get at because of what we're experiencing right now with having had funding through grants and being able to sustain that funding. So this is, I just want to understand that it's a one-year grant.
Yes.
And so then what is the expectation once the grant money is gone?
The coach would return to a previous position.
So you feel that that 1 year will give her and the teachers enough time to interact and to train and so forth that she would then be able to return to the classroom?
Yes, I think we've made it clear that it's a one-year obligation or opportunity, and she'll be involved in the trainings. And actually, we're very blessed. We have 4 or 5 teachers who've actually been trainers statewide, and so they are just very pleased that Richmond's participating now with all grade levels. But we've had a good handful of our teachers involved in training other teachers in other school corporations. So we'll be able to have that training here in Richmond, which was kind of a challenge for other school systems because it might have been at a distance. So we will have training here, and that will be both this summer and next summer. And there will be ongoing opportunities during the school year. So Lori will be able to be in the classroom, as well as there'll be some expectations for some cohort, which means, for example, the 3rd grade teachers in these 3 districts will actually talk about what they've been working on, and doing that by distance learning. There's some distance learning grant money with this that comes along with it, and I don't know the details. Rob's been talking to them. And so I really believe that this is just a great benefit in terms of having our teachers know how to utilize this process. I understand in the past we've had some kits, but it just kind of lost traction because there wasn't that training that went along with it.
And a process for
Right.
refilling the kits, is
Right.
that all in place, I hope?
They like it at Crestdale and Highland Heights because they don't have to, they run through the whole cycle, package the materials and send it. They take care of that. And that was a big issue with the old kits because things would get lost, and then they'd pack it up and wait till next year, and then realize, and we wouldn't order it. And so that is a real benefit, I think, to this program versus adopting just kids.
You alluded to my question a few moments ago. As an old science teacher, I'm very interested in the continuum of science. And so when we saw what excites me about the intermediate school is the transition and the continuum. The science gets more and more sophisticated as it moves to 7th and 8th. So you said the 7th and 8th grade have adopted this curriculum, and so the 6th grade will be in line with what they are using?
We're going to have to meet with our 6th grade teachers to kind of iron out how we're going to do this. But there's sort of that transition year as always.
Right.
But, it became kind of a fee situation, but the CPUP adoption, the teachers, especially at Dennis, who have been through ISI, they wanted to adopt CPUP because they felt they had gone through the training, the notebooking, they have continued to do that, and so they are doing the science initiative with that. So they've already had the training, and of course those are science teachers, they teach all year.
So it will be in some ways a better connection to 7th and 8th grade, and it won't be such an abrupt change from elementary science to middle school science if that is a gradual transition.
And I think we're excited about just the articulation from K to
Right.
8.
And knowing some of the 6th grade teachers that we assume may still be teaching 6th grade next year, they have a science bent, and so I think that'll be exciting to give them that to use.
Any more comments or questions?
Okay, we have a motion, right?
Right.
Okay.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Finally, we're paying attention. Oh, here we go.
The next section is just a report, or discussion, I should say, on policy section 8000, which has to do with operations. The board's received a copy. In fact, I think it's posted to the web of the newly revised suggestions for policy, and that's what they are right now, suggestions for policy. If you were to put some of our old policies side by side, you'd recognize some very strong similarities, but you'd also notice throughout that there have been some upgrades. This has been through change due to case law or statute or just practice in some cases. Now, this is what we've been trying to do over the last few years, is a section once in a while coming to the board, and you'll see a lot of this because we're trying to move that through so that we have a complete policy book in the next couple of years. But Section 8000 has to do with our operations. It's voluminous, and when you couple that
Laborious.
with our guidelines, there's a lot to look at, admittedly. And it doesn't work to do that during a regular board meeting like we're having right now. The question that I wanted to raise with the board was whether you want to set aside a specific time for a work session dedicated to just the review of the policy 8000s, or if you would like to appoint a committee to do this. And whether you do this as a group or as a committee, we need to have some REA appointed representatives to help us with this process for the input. And I've invited Patsy Baker, who is out there in the audience right now, to be thinking about some people who might join us on this task force to do that. So right now I'm asking you which direction you want to go. If you want to schedule a work session, we can do that. Or if you want to work through committee, which would be more flexible in a lot of ways for scheduling, we'd be glad to do that.
It would certainly take more than one work session if we were to do it as a board.
I think it might.
A committee would meet, I would think, 3 or 4 times because,
It would meet repeatedly.
yeah, previously, when I was on the committee, you go through it line by line, every policy. I think with all we have coming up the next couple of months, unless you want to put off these meetings on this until later, it might be better to appoint a committee made up of board members and REA and Dr. Bork. What do you think? What are your feelings, thoughts?
Before I read the update that said we were only going to talk about how we were going to do it, I've read most of the policies and the guidelines in the last week or so, and I'd be willing to serve on the committee. How our guidelines and policies are impacted by our discussion became a question for me, and I assume we could handle that in a committee, but we need to make that pretty public, because what we put on paper, some instances really did look like some of the topics you've talked about in discussion with teachers, and so how that balances and how it changes and is all, I think, a very complex part of this. So I'd be willing to serve on a committee since I've read most of them.
Other thoughts?
It's pretty exciting work either way.
I know, I wrote Kelly an email saying I'm slogging through these policies, because that's what it felt like.
Jeff?
These are board policies, and this is what the public's going to look at. And I mean, to me personally, the more open we are about them and the more open we have the discussion. But they're just like Dr. Bull.
Though, I mean, even if
Well,
we
but
did-
I think, for those people who have insomnia and they stay up all night and they would watch a board meeting, they would, the policies are there. If you have the committee, you're probably not going to go through them in the public in detail that you're going to go through. But there is a trade-off. I mean, the time, you're not going to be able to move as quick.
Yeah. Well, I would think we could do it where you have a committee and the committee brings the suggestions and we go through it, and then go through the finished policy to make sure that we're being transparent, so that the public can see it. And these are all online now and will be updated as we approve them.
So you're talking like a combination, a committee to go through it,
It's a
and
thought.
then a
We still have to
meeting.
synopsis
Yeah.
type
Yeah.
thing, yes.
Well, and we don't have to go through the guidelines, correct? I mean, those are yours. Although,
You don't have to, but the committee will want to review that.
absolutely, you got to make sure, I was having difficulty making sure that the guidelines addressed all of the details and logistics of the things that were listed in the policy. And I think that's an important role for us. If it's in policy, then there ought to be logistical, detailed guidelines that would allow that to be carried out if there were questions or issues.
Ron had a comment, I
Well,
think.
I don't think it takes anything away from what Jeff said, but just a reminder that if this committee is either appointed by the board president or determined by action of the board, you will have to meet in public, and it is subject to the open door law. So
That's true.
if people are interested enough to want to attend the committee meetings, then that's fine too. But again, even the committee would be then bringing back its recommendations for final action by the board in a public session, but
Right.
everything would be public in the process.
And
So
it would be-
all
it
the
would be
committee
posted.
meetings would have to be advertised then?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
as a public meeting too.
Well,
Is that-
I mean, if,
That was your point.
that's my point, and so, I mean, because I think it should be done. I think it should be open to the public.
How many board members would you like on the committee?
Can't have
Two-
more than
two.
three.
Two would be plenty. Mhm.
Okay, well, we can discuss who would like to be on the committee later if you want. I mean, we don't,
Yeah, because in our information on our update, it didn't prep us to think about it in that way. So I'd like to think about it, whether I would want to throw my name in the hat or not.
okay.
Did you glance through the policies? Because if you glance through what they are, I mean, they're really
Well, I
Pretty
printed off the list.
legalese and specific. I mean, there are an awful lot of things generated by law, right?
I won't tell you I downloaded them because no one asked me to. If you will, I will review. I have not reviewed them, but I did look at the table of contents and skimmed a few, and there, this section has a lot of issues that are legally driven.
Well, what I was getting ready to say is I printed them off and I went back and compared and tried, because I'm one that, do I have to read the entire policy or is there a strike-through procedure, and we go through and see what's changed? And there are several, I mean, most of the policies are new.
Yeah.
They are not established in
Changes
the
in law.
corporation currently. I mean, we have maybe 16 of the policies that are existed. Now, I don't know, I've not read them all as of yet. I will, but So I don't know how drastic they've changed or anything.
Well, and we need to approve any new policies, so.
That's right.
Okay, well, we'll put together a couple board members, and if you're, how about if you're interested in that, can you just email me, and I'll get back with you? And if not, I'll call you and see if you're interested in it.
I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. On to the master plan.
On to the master plan. We're asking tonight for an approval for construction bids, and we have put at your places, as well as, I believe, on the web, a recommendation. And I have Mr. Coddington to present that, but I'd like to present this and give the background information for the public. The Hibbard building projects were project bids were received Thursday, April 5th. The notice to bidders was published in the Palladium item on March 19th and March 26th, in the Western Wayne News on March 21st and March 28th. Proof of publication is on file in the business office, and the receipt of the bid sheet is enclosed here for your information. All bids and bid documents are also on file. The recommendation that I'm bringing to the board is actually in two parts. I'd like to recommend that the Hibbard Building project bids be awarded to the lowest and most responsive bidders as follows. A painting bid by Allen Painting in the amount of $55,040. A masonry bid by Beard Masonry in the amount of $34,200. Whiteboards and tack boards by the Lee Company, $15,860. Casework be Countertop Manufacturing for $89,849. Plumbing and HVAC by, is it Lehman's or Layman's? Layman's? Mechanical, $129,000. Electrical, Carroll Electric for $66,492. Data wiring, Carroll Electric, $18,847. And that the floor covering and aluminum entrances and window contracts be rebid, as none of the received bids met the requirements. I would like to present that as a single recommendation. And then I have a second one
Okay.
coming.
Do I have a motion for approval of the construction bids for Hibbard?
So move.
Heine makes the motion, and
Second.
Aaron Stevens seconds the motion. Are there comments and questions on this? Jeff?
I noticed with the alternate one was not accepted, or you're not recommending that we do the performance bonds on the alternate one?
On the alternate one.
No, we're not going to do the alternates. This was in case we had bidders that we didn't know or recognize. But these are local bidders, and we're comfortable with each and every one of them.
Well, it's great that we're doing it all locally.
Yeah.
Other
Well,
comments?
they're not all local. Lehman's is
But
out
they're
of
all-
Anderson.
But they're all known, they're all
Yeah.
known bidders.
No, done locally.
But as long as you're comfortable with.
Ron has a question.
Ron?
At some point in the process, and the board is in receipt of the tabulation of bids, the statute requires that that be reported to the board at the next regular meeting after bids are open, which would be this meeting. But if you go through the 10 or so pages, you'll note that some of the apparent low bidders are not the bidders who are being recommended for awarding the contract. And the reason for that is reflected in the tabulation of bids, but needs to be noted in the minutes. And essentially, and Bob can explain which are which, but either the apparent low bidder failed to include what's known as a non-collusion affidavit, and I think that's been the situation in most of the instances. And there's possibility, in addition, they did not include a bid bond. The bid bond itself can be waivable, but the non-collusion affidavit must be included with the bid.
Thank you.
Okay, so do I need to amend my motion to make reference to that, Ron?
As long as the minutes of this meeting reflect the fact that the board is in receipt of the bid tabulation, that does speak for itself and
Doesn't have to
identifies
be the
these
motion.
non-compliant bids as legally, that makes them non-responsive.
Other comments and questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And now on to the next
Yeah,
motion.
the second part of my recommendation is that the bid for electrical fixtures and occupancy sensors by electrical supplier for owner-provided fixtures be awarded to automated controls and electrical supply in the amount of $57,896.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Aaron Stevens makes a motion, and Dixie Robinson seconds the motion. How about comments and questions on this?
Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to abstain from this, so I don't have to say anything, or?
I think, would that
Do you have a
suffice?
pecuniary interest in that contract? Yeah, you should not participate and also file a conflict of interest disclosure statement with the board, submit it as soon as possible, but don't not participate, yeah.
Now, would that be in addition to the one that's already on file?
Oh, yeah, I went on file.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. So actually, you're not participating, you're not abstaining. If you abstain, your vote goes with the majority. You're just shown as not.
So you're not, so I'm not participating.
participating.
So therefore, I won't be participating in the vote.
And again, if you look at the tabulation sheet on that scope of work, that was not the apparent low bidder, I believe. Is that right, Mr. Paddington?
Correct.
But it turns out that the apparent low bidder had a patently erroneous bid. There's no question about what there was omitted scope of work that, to the, whatever reason, the bidder did not include. In such a case as that, when it's very obvious that the bid is in error, the law does not allow the board to seize on the contractor's error to take advantage of it. Now, that's a fact question. I'm relying on Mr. Coddington and Mr. Mays, their assurance that it was in fact the case in this instance.
That is the case, and we have it in writing
Okay. That makes,
from the bidder that asked in writing to have his bid withdrawn.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion is carried, and then it should be noted that Jeff Slifer did not participate.
The next item in the master planning section has to do with frequently asked questions. And we have Bridget Hazelbaker here, who receives many of those frequently asked questions and responds to the frequently asked questions. And while she's coming to the podium, I also want to highlight the impressive work of Bridget Hazelbaker and a number of people who put on the Kindergarten Rocks yesterday afternoon at the Tierney Center.
And
it
it
a
did.
tremendous response.
It did.
Yeah.
So
it
we,
was-
Stephanie Quinn, Kendra Beisner, and Kelly Andrews, of course, all helped very much with that project. So we had a great time, great turnout, music, food, lots of backpacks, and
All
can't
the
wait
schools
to.
had representatives, I mean,
All
teachers and
schools.
principals and
All the
Parents.
kindergarten teachers were
RCS.
inside Tarrant Center on the basketball court, and had different stations. We had a parachute station, floor puzzles, arts and crafts, music. Phil Quinn provided a DJ, and the kids were breaking it down.
They were.
It was fun.
Well, you have school buses, too?
And the school
That
bus,
was
yes. A student transit provided a school bus, so we had a tour, and the kids were real excited to get
Yeah,
up on a
that's
school
a
bus
great
and their
idea.
parents. It was fun. And of course, we had different community organizations there to pass out information. YMCA was there to pass out information about why care. Boys and Girls Club, the Wayne County Health Clinic was there about immunizations.
Birth to 5.
Birth
Every
to
child can
5.
read.
Birth to 5.
Child
did,
can read.
Safety Village, Safety Town for their summer programs that they have. And of course, each school had a table, so they passed out folders and information about pre-registration and enrollment for them, for their schools. So it was a good time. Can't wait to see how it happens
I
next
had
year.
a question today. Those that weren't at Kindergarten Rocks
That's
yesterday.
interesting. That's one of the questions.
Okay.
So we haven't received a lot of questions in the last 2 weeks, but one of the questions that we have had, what happens if I missed the Kindergarten Rocks event, and letting everyone know that next Thursday, we're having open houses at all 6 of the elementary schools. So at Crestdale, Charles, Elizabeth Starr, Fairview, Vale, and Westview. So from 4 to 6, parents can go there anytime, and anytime they even go to any of the schools, any school in your neighborhood, they have pre-registration forms at the office. So I recommend people to go fill out those forms anytime they can.
And still get their backpack.
And they could still get their backpack, yeah. So the backpacks is specifically for the kindergartners. We're giving that backpack to soon-to-be kindergartner kids. Did your grandson like his?
Well, I was going to celebrate that you have a big fan. I mean, it was obviously wonderful. He could not stop talking about
Good.
all of the wonderful things and all of the people he knew and all the things. He couldn't understand why he couldn't take the backpack to school this morning.
Yeah.
You know, that was his new backpack. Well,
Yes.
but have to hold on.
Had some
So
great
it was
tools.
very well done.
And Mrs. Parker did a great job helping us with all those backpacks. It was great. But, so that is a question. Some people are wondering about preschool. So we're having some questions about preschool registration too. Seats are getting reserved rather quickly for that program in
Good.
kindergarten. So pretty excited about that. So we'll have forums online to help parents get information. Like again, if they can go to any elementary school, any middle school, high school, we have pre-registration forms at any of those schools. And even here at the administration office, if they want to just stop by here on Hub Edison Parkway, we'll get some information to them. Any other questions?
I just want to commend the Schools for All working on the same night for the open house at the same time. I know that's hard to do, but I think that is awesome.
Well, and we'll have the school supply list too. All kindergartens have the same school supply list. First graders will all have the same, second grade. So we'll have that information too at the open house for parents, so they can maybe get a jump on some of those sales that are happening for some school supplies.
And then they can take a look at the school.
Exactly. My son is so excited to be able to go over to Charles and look at some fourth grade teachers. So he's really excited.
He's going to size those fourth grade.
Yeah, just to walk around it, because he's been on the outside of the building, but he's never been on the inside of Charles. So we have some families that are real excited to walk around the buildings and meet people. And the kindergarten teachers will be doing some pre-testing, K-Kid, I don't know what it's called. Pre-kid assessment?
Pre-kids.
Yeah, pre-K or?
Pre-kids.
Yeah, pre-kids assessment. They'll be doing that. It's a short little assessment they'll be doing that night. Kindergarten teachers will have some students pulled to the side to do that for kindergarten.
Does anybody have a question for Bridget?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Ready for the work session.
Work session on the RISE evaluation and development system.
For the board, this may be a first opportunity to see a formal presentation on the RISE, but I think many of you are familiar with RISE, which is a teacher evaluation model. And if you recall, we've had a great deal of conversation to this point with the teachers, and I know you've been privy to some of those conversations on this evaluation model. Mrs. Stewart will talk to you about this tonight. This is simply to bring you up to speed on the topic, because at a later date, we will be bringing to you a recommendation to actually adopt a model. So turn it over to her.
Good evening. In response to Senate Enrolled Act 1, which was enacted last July as a result of the Indiana legislative session last year, a group of educators called the Indiana Teacher Evaluation Cabinet was assigned the task of developing an evaluation process. And they developed the RISE model, which is a comprehensive teacher evaluation system. If you'll notice on the west wall over here, we have, there are 3 posters, and I may refer to those during the presentation, so just so you'll be aware. We'll cover these components of the RISE model. I'm not going to read this to you. I'll talk through these, but I won't read each slide. For tonight's meeting, the goal is to provide you with an introduction to the RISE model. We'll review the 2 components along with information regarding the summative rating completed at the end of the school year, and that's if you'll refer to the poster over to my left, the one in the middle. Teachers who effectively drive student outcomes make all the difference in the lives of our students. Teachers are professionals who need a system that differentiates teacher performance in order to give support and recognition for excellence. And teachers benefit from an evaluation system that provides detailed constructive feedback and is tailored to the individual needs of their classrooms and students. These are the core beliefs behind the development of the RISE model. And then they lead to these 3 fundamentals, and that RISE incorporates multiple measures of student learning, and that a teacher effectiveness rubric provides in-depth description of 4 performance levels, and the 4 performance levels are on the easel on that side of the room. And another fundamental is that evaluators will spend more time in the classroom in order to provide frequent, actionable feedback. And 2 major components of the RISE evaluation system: professional practice and student learning. RISE uses the teacher effectiveness rubric to evaluate all teachers in the key domains of planning, instruction, leadership, and core professionalism. By focusing on observable actions in the classroom, the rubric helps school leaders identify and encourage specific actions that teachers can take in order to help students succeed. And the second component is student learning. And student learning is a teacher's contribution to the academic progress over the course of the school year. And in the RISE model, it's measured in 3 ways, and we'll go into a little bit more detail shortly here. This is a description of the 4 summative ratings in the RISE model. Highly effective is defined as a teacher who consistently exceeds expectations. Effective is consistently meets those expectations for professional practice. Improvement necessary, room for growth in professional practice, student achievement, and professional contribution to the school. And ineffective is represented by consistently failing to meet expectations. Are there any questions to this point? Okay. The teacher effectiveness rubric is used to measure the 4 domains, 4 areas. Teachers need regular and actionable feedback in order to continually improve. And in order to build an effective teaching staff, administrators need to be able to differentiate teachers based on performance in the classroom, and therefore will have to spend more time in the classrooms. And I think that principals will tell you much more time in the classroom. And nothing matters more for students than effective instruction. So that instruction piece, as you'll see, is quite important in this next slide. The 3 primary domains with the 19 competencies that are being evaluated and assessed on that rubric. Domain 1 is about planning, and Domain 2 is instruction, and Domain 3 is leadership. And if you'll notice, the planning and leadership domains, they have percentages up there. I'm not sure we'll get into detail about what all that means, but you'll notice that the instruction, Domain 2, has 75%. That's where the action is, quite frankly, instruction in that classroom. And so there is more focus there. There are 2 types of evaluators in this process. Primary evaluator is the person who's chiefly responsible for the evaluation of the teacher. They collect evidence and they review evidence collected by any secondary evaluator, and they each teacher only has 1 primary evaluator, and they actually do the assigning of the summative evaluation rating at the end of the school year. The secondary evaluator is someone who may supplement the work of the primary evaluator. They collect evidence, they may do observations, and each teacher may have more than 1 secondary evaluator. If you'll take a look at this, it's only a part of the rubric. This is the planning domain, And to the left, the competencies are listed, and across the top are the performance level ratings, and then the indicators are to the right of the competencies. This is somewhat familiar for Richmond teachers, actually, because we've used a rubric for the past several years. The arrangement of our rubric is a little different, but by and large, it looks very familiar to our teachers. And you'll notice there are 3 competencies on one page here, but as we get into the domain regarding instruction, there's 1 competency per page. It's just the instruction domain is just much more expanded. And then domain 4, core professionalism, has to do with minimum competencies that are expected in any profession. Attendance, on-time arrival, policies and procedures, and respect. And teachers are expected to meet these standards and don't gain points in the overall evaluation rating for meeting expectations. However, if they're not met, then points are, there may be a point deducted.
Interesting.
That seems a little one-sided.
This is a sample calendar of what it might look like during the school year for observations and conferences. This is just a sample. And if you'll note, there are several observations throughout the year. Some are extended and others are short. And then there's a beginning of the year conference and an optional mid-year conference. Principals would want to have a mid-year conference probably with new teachers or teachers having some difficulty. And then there's a summative evaluation conference at the end.
Are all of these conferences, these are all from the primary evaluator?
No, yes. The conferences are held with the primary evaluator. Now, there are 3 possible measures of student learning in the RISE model. For teachers in grades 4 through 8, English, language, arts, and math, growth model data will be reported at the student level, the class level, and across class level. I-STEP, basically, is what we're talking about there. And every teacher who has a class with growth model data will get 1 score based on their data. And then the second measure, the school-wide learning measure, invests all individuals in the school in the success of the building students. It's designed to be something that everyone can contribute to, regardless of the grade level or subject matter. This measure counts equally for all teachers. It's aligned with the new A through F accountability policy. So there have been people who've asked, well, I don't teach English. I don't teach an I-STEP subject area. This is where a score will start to accumulate for those teachers. And then the third measure is student learning objectives. And they're targets of student growth and achievement that are set at the beginning of the year that students and teachers work toward all year long, and all teachers will have student learning objectives. And
Can you go back to the student learning objectives?
yes,
Okay, you said teachers will set that, or the system sets
teachers
that?
and their primary evaluators will determine student learning objectives for, if they're in a non-growth data subject area, they will set it for one of the classes that they teach, along with the building principal. It's quite a collaborative process. And
So it might
there's,
be different for, I mean,
It It won't be the same. It'll be different for each teacher.
Uh-huh, yes.
So an art teacher might look at their art standards and choose some of those art standards to focus on and have some sort of a measurement tool.
So they will come from the academic standards or the state standards or?
They can, I mean, they should be based on the state standards. In fact, some could be recommended. If we fail to come up with those, there are some generated by the State Department for us to examine and use as models. But they should be in alignment.
Okay.
Then the summative rating calculation in RISE is based on 4 principles that are listed. Do you have any questions?
Number 4 on there, data in which we have most confidence is given the most weight.
Those I-STEP scores.
And who's the primary evaluator and the secondary evaluator?
Primary evaluator typically is a principal or an assistant principal. Secondary evaluators can be retired administrators who take the training that we'll offer.
So it's not another teacher?
Could be.
Linda?
So how, if this is the model that we choose to adopt, which since you're presenting it, I'm assuming that this is the model we're looking at for our
Yes.
evaluation, correct?
Yes, it is.
So how tied are we to the components of this, of the way it was presented? I mean, is that,
Now, Linda, I have to tell you that there's a much longer, more detailed presentation than this. So these are bare bones, and I can lead you to a website to get more information. So just know that.
well, let me give you an example.
Okay.
So I want to go back to the primary and secondary evaluators. So do we have to have both a primary and secondary? Or
Well-
could we choose to only have primary evaluators?
RISE does not mandate that you have to have both. It does not. That's something that we'll have to decide locally.
Should also be noted as you're standing there, that in the audience, we have Bill Doring, who has been, who has accepted the assignment of going through the training to be a RISE trainer. And so he's working with us to work with the principals and assistant principals to train them in this model. So I didn't see him back there until a few minutes ago.
I'm interested in the student learning objectives, and I think something Kathy Parker said, when you create those based on state standards, and they have to align, of course, with all that, did you say there should be measurable outcomes, not just, this is what I want to cover?
Right.
So that's what makes this comparable to a teacher who has to be measured by I-STEP, is that there has to be some measurement there. Is that part of the theory behind that? It would make sense, okay.
Linda?
Okay, so when I saw the timeline, it looks as though this will begin on day 1, in a sense. So what is the preparation that is being done to prepare our administrators to be able to begin this on day 1? And how are we preparing our teachers?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We had a group of teachers and administrators who we have gone to work sessions and information sessions regarding the RISE model. We've gone to Connorsville, we've gone to Greensburg, who is piloting this model this year. And I don't even remember all the people we've talked to regarding this, but we have had 3 or 4,
Well, 3 with the administrator.
3 sessions with the administrators, an overview, and then we walked through the professional practice piece, and then our most recent training was on the student learning objectives. And we will have another training session the end of May on the snow day that we have. So we've started the information gathering and actual training with our administrators already.
And the principals are taking that back to their individual staffs, talking about what the expectations of the program are and sharing with them details as they understand them.
So are the administrators beginning to practice?
Well, you have to remember, we're still in the middle of using our other evaluation tool for this year. So I can't speak, we haven't asked them to practice using it in terms of their evaluations for this year. But I do know that several of them have compared the rubrics to show that they're both very similar. Both are based on Charlotte Danielson's work, and then the RISE model includes some of the work of Marzano too. So it's not a totally foreign language here for them, so that is helpful.
So the adoption timeline is for this coming school year?
We have to have it in place for this coming school year.
By July 1st, right? You have to adopt the model by July 1st.
And on the leadership part,
Okay.
I'm just gonna say this. Teachers are already, I mean, they've got like tons of things to review, do with instruction. How much more time is this leadership piece gonna
Well,
take,
the
do you
leadership,
think?
our-
Some of it can be done, I know some of it can be done in school, but looking at it, there's an awful lot that'll have to be done.
Well, I flipped back to it so that we could take a look at it while we were
Okay.
discussing it. What ways do teachers contribute to school culture? As you said, already. How do they collaborate with peers? So much of what happens is leadership, but then there are other ways. And I think that we have to have I know that we have to have discussion with REA regarding what does effective leadership look like what does that domain look like? That's part of what we have to make sure that we do, so that we're all on the same footing and have
Well, and
the
there's a
same
rubric
understanding.
for that domain.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right, there is.
Because
I
right
just,
now, it just looked really vague to me, and I thought, how are you gonna?
right, and I didn't put a sheet of that domain up there.
Okay.
And I think it'd be interesting after Professor Mohammed is here, because he's spending so much time on the school culture and some of that, it'll all, I would think, kind of tie together. I'm interested in the comment and the section that only counts negatively toward the score. And I'm not sure I fully understand that. I think from the reading I've done, I'm assuming that here is the minimum expectation. If you are a professional, you behave in this way.
Right.
And this is true of any other job classification I know. So you don't get extra, I guess, I just want to make sure that I'm clear, so you don't get extra points for that. That's just an assumed behavior.
Right.
It's only if you don't behave in that way that
Right.
you are penalized. Okay, I just needed clarity.
Okay.
No more questions?
Well, that's because we haven't seen the whole thing yet.
Right.
We're just starting the assimilation of all this information.
Right.
So when will we be asked to approve this?
Either at the next board meeting or the first one in April or May.
So will you please guide us to where we need to go to see the entire document?
There
Or
are-
send it to us,
Yeah,
or?
we can give you
We can
the,
send you links.
I
If
think
you're
that
in
would
the
be
lo-
really important.
some of
I've
you are
seen
in the
some-
Learning Connection,
Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
you? Okay, we
Right.
can, it's not hard to get you there.
How many other school systems in the state are you assuming will go to this model?
We've been told the majority will.
Yeah. And Greensburg has found what to be the case as they've used it with the pilot? Reception for this,
What they've,
connections
it's,
to
what
achievement?
what they have told us is that it has changed, it's changed the work and the conversation of the entire staff.
And what do they mean by that?
What they mean by that, for one thing, is that teachers are much more focused on specific elements of instruction. Their conversation is more focused on the indicators as included in the rubric itself, as opposed to more nebulous, more emotional reactions. They have specific indicators they talk about. But what they really found was that the job of the principal is totally different.
Sure.
The principal becomes much more a part of the instructional practice of the teachers, and is not in the office to do the typical work of a principal.
So what are we going to
Yes.
provide for
And how are
principals
they
to
solving
take
that
care of the
issue?
rest of the issues that we've put on their plates?
Well, that's why we have worked our entire master plan to provide the resources to keep much of our support that we've put in place for the principals. So
Like communities in schools and
communities and schools and the
Centerstone.
Centerstone, sure. It would be great if we could put assistant principals in place. We aren't there yet.
Well, and we can also ask that about teachers. What do we do when we keep adding on to teachers? You know, there are lots of people here that need support. And administrators need support, teachers need support with their, with the load that they have also. So it works.
Just, I'm sure you've gone over this, but does the state tell you what is acceptable as far as a model? I mean,
Yes, it has defined the models that we can work with.
Okay.
Or if you want to create a variation of one, you do send that for approval.
But it, okay, has to have certain aspects, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
We're on to our press conference. Are there any questions out there? Consent items?
Our consent items tonight consist of only two items, would be, and that, the first would be the approval of the March 28th minutes, and a recommendation from Human Resources, including a very brief addendum that has been posted to the web.
Do I hear a motion to accept the consent items as presented?
I so moved.
Jeff Slifer makes the motion, and Dixie Robinson seconds the motion. Are there questions on the consent items? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's time for our second public commentary, and I know we have a couple people out there in the audience. Anyone like to speak? No? Follow up on old business? Superintendent and board reports, reflections, and celebrations. We celebrated
Kindergarten.
kindergarten.
Yeah,
Yes.
We need to celebrate the newest group of inductees to the National Honor Society last night. They were a sparkling group. It was a little smaller than we've had in the past, and I just attribute that to a greater selection process. It was a very nice ceremony. And I think there's kind of an interesting little sub-story in that, and I was pointing it out to some board members previously, and that is, we had the kindergarten rocks going on in the Tiernan Center, and much of that was attributed to the work of Kendra Beisner. In the Civic Hall last night, with just at the other end of the student spectrum, the high school, we had Karen Kimball, who was in charge of that. And Karen and Kendra are sisters-in-law. So I thought that family effort there paid off in big ways for our kids
And
yesterday.
Paul Beisner, the father-in-law and the father celebrated a birthday, 90th birthday.
90th birthday.
Mm-hmm. Recently, as we noted in the paper. He
Any
was a
other
fine administrator.
We have a lot of celebrations coming up with the end of the school year. May is getting really packed, so it's hard to believe it's almost the end of the school year. No, and then we will review the tentative meeting agenda.
And let me get to that. Okay. Tentative agenda, we'll have our quarterly financial report. Mr. Coddington is now reporting formally at board meetings on a quarterly basis. We also will have our receipt of donations, recommendation on the smart board bids, and also a 181-day calendar approval for grades 5, 6, and 9. That's a little different because we've had just ninth grade. Now we're wanting to do that with 5 and 6, and I'll talk more about that in a later time.
Cool.
Frequently asked questions, there will probably be more under the master plan at that point. Consent items, which will include the minutes and the human resources and accounts payable, filing of reports for a high-ability report, and we may move that to a regular report, but at this point, it's just the filing of reports. And that's that.
In the master plan piece of our agenda, could you talk about perhaps like what we're doing at the current time where we are in construction, if all the teachers have gotten their assignments?
Well, in fact, we can talk about that right now if you'd want.
Okay.
I mean, it wouldn't take long to talk about that.
And we have time, so.
We have work at Crestdale that's very visible. A whole wing has been vacated, and an entire gym has been filled by way of classrooms. And it really is a nice job that our maintenance crew did to prepare the gym for classrooms. The whole gym has been carpeted, which has reduced the noise level.
Oh, wow.
The carpeting was a great buy. It was leftover carpeting or surplus carpeting from Earlham College, but it was in great shape for our purposes. The gym has been parceled out in very accommodating sections for the classes that are there. But the wing at, what is that, the east wing of the building has been vacated, and it'll be going through demolition it's probably already begun. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we have Hibbard that is in pretty good shape now to begin the work of putting it back together. It's been gutted in many ways. Nice job of demolition on that. As the master plan pertains to staffing, all the staffing assignments have been made. They're tentative in some ways, but they've been made. And when I say it's tentative, our enrollment could fluctuate, so that some of those assignments may have to change here and there, but we think we are pretty set on our assignments, with the exception of the creative arts teachers. And we're still going through the process of determining exactly how those schedules need to be arranged at the elementaries. We are still talking about common prep periods for all elementary teachers, and then how we're actually teaching and assessing the performance of students in some of those areas. For example, art. Right now, we spread the instruction out through the entire year. We may be making that a more intense period of time so that we can actually do some accountability in terms of instruction as well as learning. Students have gone through, and we've gone through and we've assigned them according to their boundaries. But there were also transfer requests, and those were processed through a lottery on Monday. And not everyone received their selection, their choice for transfers. But I will say this, the transfer process, in the numbers that we had them, and in the addresses where they were, pretty much balanced out every building. We did have some enrollment concerns in some of the buildings, both high and low, and I can tell you right now, as that stands, there's only one building where we have perhaps a need to add one more teacher. And that would be based on enrollment. And we've already had how many?
Since Monday, we're entering about 30 address changes, so. It's a moving target.
It is,
Do
it
the
really
parents
is.
know if their transfer was accepted?
The letters, Debbie's been working on those, and they should go out tomorrow.
Yeah.
And approximately, were there quite a few that didn't get it, or?
It's
I'm not sure
dependent
how
on
many
the
were.
school and the grade level. There were some schools where we probably had 8 or 10 requests that were not
Okay.
granted, but, with so much movement, we anticipate that we'll do a second round of the lottery in July and maybe even after the first week of school, because we want to get people where they want to be.
Thank you.
And I think that's where we are right now. If you have other questions, if I haven't touched on a topic, ask me.
No? It's early. Thank you.